I think that everyone has a skill they can bring online. I think a lot of
That's a
people are
good
not
point.
aware. Not everyone wants to start with their own business or their own freelancing right away.
Nadine Colditz, welcome to Digital Nomad Finder podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we're very excited to have you. Nadine is someone who's been traveling uh, a long time, way before she started her digital nomad journey. And you started your digital nomad journey 2 years ago, right?
Correct. 2 years ago in February. Yeah. So
Can you
almost two
please,
years now.
nice. Can you please walk us through the story, how you got into becoming a digital nomad?
Of course. So when the pandemic in 2020 forced me to go back from Australia to Germany, I was kind of, I knew I wanted to travel again, and I knew I wanted to travel independently because I've traveled before, but it was usually like a working holiday. So you pretty much go to a country and you earn money there by finding a job there. But I wanted to travel and be independent and make money while I travel. So in 2020, when everything was kind of in a standstill, I was like, okay, I'm going to look for a job. And I went on Upwork and I got very, very lucky and found a job there that was 100% remote. It was a German company. And I worked for them as a freelancer for a little bit, but then they offered me a contract. And I was like, okay, cool, but I'm only going to take this position if I could travel with it, right? That was my one condition. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. So I had the job. And then in 2021, I was like, I need to leave Germany. It's been long enough. I've been here long enough. And I left. I wanted to go to Bali originally. That was the plan. I had the visa, but then Bali closed its borders
Hmm.
because of COVID and rising cases in the world. And so I ended up going to Sri Lanka in February of 2021 with one of my friends from the Netherlands who I had met in Australia. So we went to Sri Lanka together. And then, yeah, that's how I kind of started off. So, yeah, Sri Lanka was my first country as a digital nomad in 2021.
Something interesting that you mentioned is that you went on Upwork and then you
Yes.
said you got lucky. Do you think it was
Yeah.
pure luck? Because I know that a lot of people who are trying to be, digital
Yeah.
nomad or trying to
Yeah.
get into the lifestyle, try on Upwork, but find it hard. Do you think it's pure luck that you got it, or you actually did something maybe special that other people can learn from?
Oh, that's such a good question. I feel like, when sometimes in life things happen because they need to happen for you. I don't know
I
why.
love
Like,
that.
I feel like that was one of those moments because I was in a pretty bad spot around that time. And I was just like, trying everything to make my dream happen.
Yes.
And I I mean, like, especially I think back, it's interesting that you asked that because I think back a lot and like I was like probably Upwork was at an all-time high in 2020 because everyone was looking for remote work, right? So
Yes.
I don't know, like it was, I mean, obviously it was a German company, so they were looking for someone who speaks German, which kind of narrows it down a little bit already. And then it was a customer service job, and I've had so many years experience in customer service. And then I just had a short call with my boss back then, and I don't know, I think it just fit. I think he just asked me a couple questions, and I was like, oh, I would do this, and he's like, perfect. When can I onboard you? And so I don't know. I think I was just like very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I like that the fact that you acknowledge luck in it because I think it's sometimes something that we don't often, yeah, acknowledge or even notice like, oh, it's because I did this or because I did that. So I love that. And I think one of the most challenging thing for people uh who wants to start remote working, even not even start to move around, is to find a skill that they can
Mhm.
do remotely. How was it for you? Like, did you just try whatever that you could find, or did you already do your research and narrow it down?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you try. So I'm someone who likes to go for whatever I feel most comfortable in. And obviously like having had so many years of experience in customer service already, I was like, okay, this is something I can do. But before kind of like in that time, like in that between like I think July, August, September of 2020, I was kind of like trying, all these things that they tell you on YouTube. They're like, you can do this for passive income and this. And so I tried
All
different
the
things.
crazy things, yes.
Oh my God. And it's so much work, right? And I was like, no, I'm not like drop shipping or,
Yes.
or like what is it? Yeah, drop shipping. And God, they had so many like weird things that
Create a
you can do,
YouTube
which I'm
channel. I think
yes,
it's
make a
one of the
YouTube, make a
things.
blog, which obviously also makes like until they make profit, all these
Yeah.
things.
Data
And
entry, English teaching, right? Right.
yeah,
Oh,
transcribing,
yes.
English teaching, yeah, teaching online, exactly. Um, yeah, like all these things that you can do. And then I was like, oh, this is all like the setup takes so much longer than just like trying to find a job and maybe, and especially at the beginning, honestly, I didn't even care about how much they would pay me. I just wanted my foot in the door. I don't even remember what the rate was back then, but you know how like Upwork takes a lot of like big chunk out of your earnings. So like I don't know if you say like I want to earn $25, they give you 20. So at the beginning I was just like, oh, just get anything and then just kind of, on Upwork you can also collect reviews and like, they see how much work you've already done. Um, so it was just kind of like, honestly, I just wanted to get my foot in the door and like do anything for whatever, which obviously now I feel a lot differently about that because I think that all of us have skills that we can that someone else can profit on. And honestly, like I think even like customer service especially, that's like the core of your company. Like if there's no customers, there's no business.
Yes.
And I think it's such an overlooked job. Like it's such an overlooked field and position. And like it's always like at the end of the chain, food chain. And
Mm.
it's like, oh, customer service and like minimum wage jobs and like outsourcing it to people that do it for even less, And it's sad to see, honestly. And like I think now, so I lost my job in November and I've been kind of like trying to figure out what the best way for me to go is. And like customer service is also people are very picky about it, hiring managers, because it can be very time critical, right? So they want you to be in a certain time zone and like they want you to be responsive through like 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or something. So yeah, I don't know. I think like honestly, if it's like super important for you to get started on remote work, I'd say be flexible, but only do what you feel comfortable doing. The job I got, I felt very comfortable doing. I loved the company. I loved who I worked with. I liked my coworkers, my boss. It was super chill. So at the beginning, making not as much money as I could have was fine. But they promoted me pretty quickly, so I can't complain. But I don't know. I would just always say, try what feels right and apply for, what you think you can do. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know about you, but it's a huge thing to feel like imposter syndrome, where you think you can't do something.
Mhm.
Especially, I feel like now being back on the job market, like all these job descriptions and open positions, what they require you to do or know, like I'm like, who knows all of this? I've been working for that was 18, 19, right? I've been in the like in the office job since I was 18, 19. And I'm like, who has that much work experience and like that much knowledge on different tools? It's crazy. It's crazy. So I think like even me, I think that's also like I think I should take to heart, like just apply and then go with the flow and kind of, do learning by doing kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, I think like like you said, when you see the description and it requires so much from you, and sometimes not even pay you evenly. But I think this is something that we could only figure out after a while. When you're just starting, you have no idea, and like you said, you just want to get your foot in, and you will just take whatever. So yeah, it's definitely not easy to tell, like, is this a fair payment for this amount of work that I'm gonna do, and who do I ask, where do I go? So
Mm-hmm.
but for me at the time, I mean, I'm Indonesian, so when I look, of course my comparison is, Indeed.com. So I
Mm-hmm.
look at Indeed.com, let's
Yeah,
say.
that's a good one.
Yeah. So my background is uh, a little bit of computer science and a little bit of customer service and property management. So I look at
Oh,
those
cool.
things on Indeed.com Indonesia, and then look at the exact same job on Indeed.com International and compare. Wow, okay, so this is how much people get paid doing the
Mm-hmm.
exact same job internationally compared to Indonesia. And I saw that in the Indonesian one was very, very demanding. It's like you have to have master's degree, you have to have 7 years experience to be a sales manager, let's say, and you get paid only, I don't know, $600. So
God,
yes, so I was like, okay, there's no way. So like you said, I had to get my
that's
foot in the
crazy.
international marketplace. um
I mean, that is like just hearing that, obviously, that's insane. Like even obviously I'm from Germany, right? So like
yeah.
pays are higher. But then I look like you, I look on Indeed or like I ask in Facebook groups what people make. Americans make so much more money. Like the hourly pay is way higher.
Yes.
The yearly pay is like it's crazy. Customer service, like it's so much higher. Like obviously not as high as it should be, I think, but like still like and then sometimes they ask you even, like for example, obviously I'm German, but I don't live there, right? Sometimes they want to know your location. So they see, oh, she lives in Mexico right now. So she's going to get Mexican wages because she has a Mexican lifestyle, you know? And like
Yes.
you have the resources technically to pay someone a fair wage, but you're not doing it. And in my previous job, I had a lot of co-workers from the Philippines, which by the way is I like I've never worked with better people in my life. I think they're like their attitude to work and their commitment to work and like just like their work ethics is amazing. And like they get paid nothing. And I think
Yes.
it's crazy.
Yeah, totally. So before you started your digital nomad journey, you were already traveling, but working
Hmm.
abroad on
Yeah.
holiday visa. And now you are working online and free to go whenever you want. So how does being a digital nomad, well, living the digital nomad lifestyle change the way that you travel?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, as a working holiday person, I did it in Canada and in Australia. And you don't really go in having money, right? You don't even go in having a job. So you live in hostels. Like I spend a lot of time in Australia, especially spend a lot of time in hostels, finding like super cheap accommodation. What I did like in Australia, I shared my rooms. Like I would always live with like, I had a bedroom, but like with someone else. And in Brisbane was my really we ended up being really, really close friends. We're still in touch. So that was cool. But yeah, like shared living spaces. But also obviously because I would work in hospitality, so I would go out to work, right? I wouldn't
Mm,
have to find a place to work from. So
yeah.
like sleeping in a hostel didn't matter. I would just get up and go to work. And then in Canada, I lived in mountain resorts and accommodation was kind of provided for me. But now, obviously, what I need is good Wi-Fi. Um, quiet space, which honestly, the countries I've done digital nomading in are usually not very quiet countries. Like Mexico as well, like very loud, always background noises, roosters, dogs, I don't know, loud cars, music, you know. So like finding like I think the challenge is booking accommodation and like having to rely on the host saying, okay, we have good Wi-Fi and you know you can actually work from home. Um, yeah, kind of like being able to get sleep, you know, because you
Mm,
have to kind of, you know, work the next day or even look at the infrastructure around you. Is there co-working in case my Wi-Fi is not good? Can I go somewhere to a cafe that has good Wi-Fi or is there co-working space?
yes.
Um, so what I did in Mexico, so I went to the first place I went to was Playa del Carmen on the Caribbean coast. Um, and I lived in a co-living place. And I did that
Mm,
before this year in Portugal as well. I did co-living and that was life-changing. That was like the best experience because you know you're surrounded by people that also work remotely. So first of all, you meet people that do the same thing as you do. And then also, you know, the co-living places, they are targeted at nomads, so or like remote workers. So the Wi-Fi has to be good. Like that's their selling point, right? The
yes.
selling point is you can work from here. This is your place to live and sleep and work, you know? So I think that's different. Like I think the accommodation and really figuring that out, um, that's like a challenge. And that's very different to my backpacker life as a on a working holiday visa. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh my God, I have so many questions I want to ask you. But how often do you move around?
Mm, I try not to as much because I'm solo traveling. So like I don't know, like just finding like a place where I can where I have like can meet people and kind of like, you know, have a good social circle is really important. And I think like if you just stay 2 weeks, 3 weeks in one place, that's really, really hard. So I've usually done at least 3 months. The only places I haven't done three
Mm,
months is Sri Lanka and then Croatia. But Croatia last summer was like a little bit of a trip with my friend. We did some, you know, we did some traveling around and like, so we only did 6 weeks in Croatia. But everywhere else, I've stayed at least 3 months, which for me is a good amount of time because I'm someone who needs routine and like I feel I only start feeling comfortable once I know my surroundings and where I can go for food or groceries or the gym. So I think 3 months is my sweet spot. Like I think that's a good amount of time. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned routine. How important is it for you to have a routine? And is it the same routine wherever you go? How do you do it?
Yeah, our routine is like my number. That's the most important thing. And that's whenever I first move somewhere new, that's what I struggle with the most. And I know that that's my first thing I have to get sorted on. Because for me, I struggle, well, I have mental illness. So for me, like when I was in therapy, that was always like the one thing, right? Like Nadine, you have to have routine. That's like what keeps you healthy, you know, essentially. So yeah, I honestly have the same routine everywhere I go. And I stick to that religiously. Yeah.
Religiously, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it's important to know what you need and stick to that to keep yourself sane, so to
Yeah,
speak.
same. Exactly.
Sane.
Because it's easy to get distracted, right? New
Yes.
place, so much to see,
Yeah.
so much to do.
So much to
You know how
explore.
it gets. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And how do you keep that work-life balance,
Yeah.
especially if you're in a
Um,
new place?
At the beginning, I remember when I first moved abroad, and obviously I did a lot of like tropical destinations and like really beautiful places. So people in Germany, especially were like, oh my God, you know, you're on holiday for months. And I was like, no, that's not how it works. Just because it's warm here and there's like palm trees doesn't make it a holiday. Um, and I was always lucky enough to work part-time. So I didn't have, you know, that 40-hour work week. And so
Mm,
I always had like time to explore. And especially um, in Mexico, especially when I was working with German customers, clients, um, being ahead of time, being behind is kind of nice because when they go to bed or they log out of work when it's only noon or something for me. So I can like get my work in the morning and then kind of like have the afternoon to myself. But I do try to structure, I'm a morning person, so I try to structure it in a way that I get most of my work done before noon and then find the balance in the evening and kind of, go for walks and explore. And especially, and you know how that is as well in hot countries. Like I've always been, so far, my digital nomad journey was mostly in very tropical and hot places. So I don't do much between 9 and 4 because it's too hot, you know?
Yes.
So like people are
You
like,
want a
how do
nap.
you stay, right? People are like, how do you stay inside all day? It's such a nice place. I'm like, it's too hot to do anything. I don't want to be outside. So I think honestly, that's one thing, how to find a life, like work-life balance, go somewhere where it's too hot to do anything during the day. Because when I lived in Lisbon, that was a city and like it wasn't that warm. So there was like I could explore, I could walk, and like I could go to all these places. But honestly, I don't struggle that much. I kind of stick to doing stuff in the evening and then on the weekends because I always had the weekends off. So I was like, okay, like weekends are my exploring time. And I'm just trying to fit the gym in during the day, usually, which I would always manage to do. Um, yeah. Honestly, it depends, I think. I don't know if do you work like 9 to 5? Do you have like a structured, like very structured work day?
Oh my God, mine is very messy, honestly. Like it feels like I work all the time and it feels like I don't work at all, if you know what I mean.
I know
Because
what you mean.
because I mean, I think starting the podcast keep me more aware of how I'm spending my time, because I have to schedule the guest and do the admin stuff myself. And then now realizing how much the production actually, uh, you know, requires me to be working all the time and get it done. So then that makes me realize, wow, this is actually a job more than one person can do, because like, okay, doing the admin and stuff like that. But before I start the podcast, my work looks like, okay, I do digital marketing as a freelancer, and now I'm working for one client as a partnership manager. So I basically negotiate deals with the partner that he could work with and send them invoice. And most of the things are done through chat. So I basically just work on my phone. So it's kind of hard, to set the boundaries because it's on the phone. So my work really takes maximum 2 hours a day. And then the rest of the things, I just do whatever. But that's
Oh,
what I'm
that's so
saying.
nice.
Yeah,
Because so my previous job that I lost and the customer service job where I was a team lead, that was obviously I was on payroll. So I was like a proper employee. So I
yes,
felt a lot of obligations and like what you just said is that's such a big thing, the boundaries. And I
yeah,
think it's even harder when you are a digital nomad and you don't have an office. You go because
yes,
office, you go in, you go out. That's the boundary,
yeah,
right? But we don't have that.
yes,
So the boundary setting at the beginning, horrible. Like I feel like I didn't have time off. Um, but now that I'm freelancing and like trying to build my own client base, I realize the contracts that I write for people, I'm already putting in, I'm flexible. I can work from wherever and whenever I want, unless there's a meeting, obviously, that I have to attend. That's fine because we agree on that when we have the job interview. But yeah, it's such luxury, I think, if you are able to freelance, because just in Playa, I met a lot of people that worked for there were a lot of Americans and Canadians, and most of them had payroll jobs, and it's very like 9 to 5. And I could feel like I was just like, oh, I really, if I can avoid getting back into that circle, I would really, I would really not like love to get back into that because it's
Yes.
so restricted and it's so not flexible.
Yes.
Because sometimes I want to travel, like the flight on Wednesday is cheaper than the flight on a Saturday, and I want to take that Wednesday flight, and I don't have to worry about work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, and but like what you said, so relatable, the boundaries. Like it's so, you know.
Yeah, you have to consciously consciously do that, especially something like my work that doesn't require me to open a laptop, so already the phone just feels like, oh, it's just talking to friend, but really it's working. So
Oh,
to
that's good.
yeah.
I would think that like a phone is like harder to set a boundary with
Yeah,
because you always have it with you, whereas a laptop, you're just like, oh, if I'm not in the house, I don't see it.
exactly. So when it's on the
Yeah,
phone, the association is different until you
yeah,
realize, hey, actually I'm working when, and I
yeah.
shouldn't be
I
at
shouldn't
this
be
time.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
And
is interesting.
I
Yeah.
think also what's interesting for me is because I've only spent 6 months of my digital nomad life in Europe, and I've only so far worked with, no, I actually just signed my first American client, but only worked with the people from Germany. So the time zones, sometimes, because I get asked, right, especially from people who are not nomads. I don't know about you, but people that are not digital nomads, they ask how I deal with the time zones. And it can be tricky, I think, sometimes, because
Mm.
for example, when I lived in Southeast Asia, it was nice because I got up and I could catch up on work and it was so quiet. No one was bothering me. But then I was sometimes would go out at night or in the evening, and then they like I would still get messages on WhatsApp or whatever because they were still working, and I would be like, oh, no, I'm not near my laptop. I'm stressed now.
Yeah.
Um, but now I'm in Mexico, so I get up in the morning and they've already worked for like 6 hours,
Oh no.
and I'm like, oh, all the stuff, and like I only have like an overlap of 3 hours with them. And that sometimes is hard for me to do boundaries as well because I feel like, oh God, I have to get up early. And like, I don't know. Sometimes the time zones are a struggle, I think. Like,
Yes. If the overlap is too long, I think it is. Unless you
mhm,
are free to do whenever you can, as long as you get it done, then I think that makes it a little bit easier, right?
super. And I
Yeah.
think that's something I'm also now that I have to job hunt again, that's something because I really struggled with and I guess this is something like probably a lot of new nomads have, or like people that want to do nomading have to think about as well. Do I want to have a stable income with a payroll job where I work as an employee for someone, um, and kind of stick to what they want from me? Because if I'm an employee, I work for someone and they are my boss. And I was like, because I was thinking, oh, like a stable income would be amazing. Would be
Hmm.
something that would give me financial security, would give me less anxiety. Now that I've started freelancing and I've only have literally, so with my client right now, I have one meeting, which is in the middle of the night. So that kind of sucks because I'm not in Germany or not in the European time zone. Um, but so like one meeting a week is fine. And then everything else I can do on my own schedule. And then I've just started, and I've told you this, just started to work as a podcast manager. And
Yeah.
that's like I would love to do that like full
Hmm.
time. And, you know,
Full time as
because
in with many clients, or full
yes,
time working for somebody else with many
no,
clients?
working, yes, like having
Okay.
that as my own, like that as
Sole
my only
income.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my only source of income. That would be the dream because podcast management is so flexible. Like I don't, I just have a time frame and when I have to deliver what I'm doing, but everything else doesn't matter when I do it. And I think that like that 100% freedom in when I do my work is like the dream scenario. And that's, I think, my goal for this year. Um, and like something that I want to build towards because the freedom I have or would have with that would be incredible. But I think that's something that if you want to start as a nomad, you have to like think about, right, for yourself. Is it okay for me to work, I don't know, on a strict schedule for someone, but have a stable income? And I know a lot of people who do, and I obviously had it before, um, because it gives you a lot of security. And I think a lot of people that start out would probably prefer that because it gives you just like less anxiety and more stability. And especially, I don't know, people try to stick to their time zones as well.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's a big decision you have to make. Not everyone wants to start with their own business or their own freelancing right away. I
Yeah,
I don't know.
totally.
You freelance, right?
Yeah, for the work, yes. I
Yeah.
freelance. I agree with you. I mean, like we can ask people for advice, and I don't think that there's any advice, well, not every advice that we can take so literally. We kind of have to see like how that suits us as a person, what we need like mentally, because we also need to see how we manage stress, right? And then I think when people want to start the digital nomad lifestyle, they often maybe see just the exciting part of it, or even just pictures of people working
Mhm.
from the beach with their
Yeah.
laptop, which is actually not very fun because you can't even see your screen
I
actually.
mean, yes, I agree. It's not the
Yes.
thing. I was like, why would I work in the sun on the beach?
Yeah. And then sometimes maybe like me, I'm living in a guest house, and then we have like a local landlord, and then I will be working, like literally working, and it doesn't occur to her that I am working, that I don't want to talk. So this is
Yeah.
also a challenge. Just because
Oh my
I'm
God.
not in an office, I am working, so I already said I'm working. Then
That
start
is so
asking me
true.
questions. So
Everyone's
this,
loud. Yeah. People come into your room. Are you in
yes,
Bali?
yes, I'm in Bali.
Yes.
Another
Yeah.
thing is when you work for at an office, like you go to your office, that's where your work is, and when you go to your room, that's where you sleep. And
Mhm.
now, when you're a digital nomad, and probably sometimes don't always feel like going to out to work to a cafe, right? So you just work from home. And now the association has changed. Like, okay, this room has feel like an office, somewhere to sleep.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that's why I say I feel like I'm not working at all, but I also feel like I'm working all the time at the same time. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and that's something
I
you
think that's
can,
such a big thing. Yeah. That's
yeah.
why I know a lot of nomads that go to or have a co-working space they go to, have a membership because they're like, okay, I need to go somewhere else and maybe meet other people too that work remotely or just have, and I think that's something I went to a co-working space in Bali and they had like proper chairs. And I was like,
Oh,
this is a game changer because I like feel like my back always hurts. And I was like, oh, the chairs, they are so nice. And you can do standing desks as well. So that's a bit of a luxury also going to a co-working space, just get out of the house and stuff. But
yeah.
I don't always love it. I sometimes just like to work by myself in my room as
Yes,
well.
which is the perks as well, right? Because sometimes you don't feel like getting ready, and you can just wake up and pretty much open your laptop,
Exactly.
start working. So that's the perks,
Yeah.
and there's also the downsides to it.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah, another thing I think a lot of people wants to start or get their foot in the door, like you said, don't realize is that when shifting to the remote working, the digital nomad lifestyle, when you work for a corporation, your social life is sort of built into it. You go there, you have friends, or at least people to talk to. But when you are living the digital nomad lifestyle, you have to make a conscious effort to build connection or to do networking.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise, then you feel lonely. How do
Oh my
you
God, yes.
deal with that challenge?
Yeah, that's such a big thing. I just moved to in Mexico, so I'm back, at that, struggling with that. Because honestly, now after having done co-living twice, I especially people that start nomading, honestly, try co-living. It's like it's amazing. It's so easy to make friends. You live with people that I live the same lifestyle you do. So you have that as a, common factor already. And it's just so easy to make friends. Like when I moved to Playa in September, I had friends like that. On the third night I was there, we had a family dinner. Like we would have like a little get together on Thursdays and like eat together. And I met people that night, and then they were like, "Oh, we're going to Cozumel, which is an island off the like just off the coast." They're like, "Oh, we're going to Cozumel on the weekend. Want to come?" And I was like, "Yes, that's awesome. I don't have to do the trip by myself." And I think that's like if you can find co-living where you want to go and you can afford it because it's usually a bit more expensive, then do it. It's incredible. Other than that, if I go somewhere new, like I'm not in a co-living place here. So what I do is I find Facebook groups right away that are in the area. There's usually digital nomad groups or expat groups. And then right away I found a lot of WhatsApp groups as well. So I'm in too many right now because they are no like it just my phone just keeps coming like sending me notifications. But there's always there's people twice a week organizing meetups, co-working like sessions, um, and try to go to those. Sometimes I don't feel like it, but then sometimes I just force myself and I'm like, okay, this was nice talking to people. And then so I use Facebook, WhatsApp a lot. And there's also Bumble BFF. I don't know, not that many people know about it, but
I've heard of
Bumble,
it.
yeah, the dating app Bumble has you can switch modes and you have a mode that's called Bumble BFF, and there's people that look for friends. So I've had success with that. I met a really, really great friend in Playa through Bumble BFF, and I'm using it here as well. So that's something that I use, but I also sometimes I realize, especially when I move somewhere new, I have to really force myself to go out because yeah, I'm like I can't just be by myself all the time. Because especially for trips, sometimes it's nice to have other people, or like yeah.
Yeah. And now that you're working online, do you still take trips where you just totally just do exploring and not do any work at all? Because of
Yes,
course, yeah.
yeah,
How
I
often do you do
do.
that?
Um, that's a good question. It depends really where I am. I think in Southeast Asia, especially, there was so much when you were more in the touristy places as well, like in Bali and then in Thailand when I lived in Thailand too. It was super easy to book tours. Like there would
Uh,
always be like stands or something around, your where you lived, and there was just people selling trips. And then you can just go on these trips, and usually there's other people going, so you're not alone. You meet people. Um, and I usually like in Southeast Asia, yeah, in Thailand and Bali, I would do it not a lot, but like I would take like the weekends or whatever.
mm,
Sometimes I would take my laptop as well if it was during the week. Um, and then in Mexico, I did it with friends, and we always went on the weekends because everyone worked Monday through Friday. So that was kind of easy to organize. And then here, I haven't done that much exploring. But yesterday, I went to it's in the evening. They do like turtle releases, so you get like a baby turtle. It's so cute. And then you go and let them into the ocean, like let them out, and like just like release them. And I did that by myself. So I do little things sometimes during the week, if I can fit it in, or I usually just stick to the weekends. But yeah, I try to do it because I tend to, and I don't know how you are, but like sometimes I tend to be like not as um don't take much initiative to do a trip. And
yeah.
then I'm like, like especially in Bali, I think at the beginning, I went on one trip to Nusa Lembongan, but then I didn't do trips for like months. And I was like, what am
Mm,
I doing? Why am I not doing more? Like there's so much to see in Bali and around Bali, um, that you can do. But yeah, like you gotta be like on it, right? But yeah, it's what makes it extra special because then you realize you are in a place, it's easy to get, sorry, I feel like I'm going off topic, but it's easy to get stuck in your, oh, this is where I live now and I have my routine and like this is my life. And then you're like, oh, I should take trips. I should actually explore
Yeah.
and like see the island or see the country, you know? Yeah.
And before you mentioned that you were doing customer service and now you're doing podcast management. How did you get into freelancing as a podcast manager now?
Yeah, I lost my job in November of last year. The company I worked for, that they went bankrupt and it kind of came out of nowhere. And I think even before that, I was just kind of like always wanted to be my own boss or like have my own, find my own clients that to work with. But now I was forced to. So I was like,
Mm.
obviously, like the logical step is to get a customer service job again. But I would only get interviews with German companies, and then the German companies would be like, well, you're not, in Germany, so we can't employ you, but we also don't want freelancers to work for us. And then also you're a different time zone, and they would have all this like, all this like, this is why you can't work for us, and this is why you can't work for us. And getting jobs, for example, with American companies is super hard because you are not a native speaker and then you don't have citizenship, so how do we even like employ you, because like obviously you would have to work freelance. And so that was difficult, so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try as a virtual assistant, right, doing more than just customer service. And then I was like, oh, there's just so much competition. And then I remembered my friend Maggie, who I met in Lisbon last year. She worked as a podcast manager. And I love podcasts. So I don't really listen to music. So all like on my walks every day and stuff, I just listen to podcasts. And I was like, what? You can be a podcast manager? What even is that? What even like, how do you even find work? So I took a course on it online and I kind of learned everything that goes into it, from editing to promotion to writing show notes, and launching, whatever. And so now I'm trying, that's like my main focus right now. I have a job as a virtual assistant that hasn't like where I get my income right now. But on the side, I'm trying to build the podcast management business because that's what I want to do in the long run. I want to do that as my full-time job or as my main source of income, I would say. And I just on Monday signed a client from the US for podcast
Ah,
management. It's
exciting.
only yeah, it's super exciting. I'm so happy. It's only like they only release one episode a month, so it's not that work heavy right now, but it's my first like client that I can use for testimonial and like it's just really cool. But yeah, my I got exposed to it through my friend and I'm trying to like, get started on it. But it's a slow process, but it's just, trying to find the right people. And I've been trying to kind of um I would like to work with podcasts that I relate to. So, like, obviously, the digital nomad space, or even just working with digital nomads, is what I am hoping to do in the future because this is something I'm interested in. And, like, it would be cool to work with other people that do the same thing.
How did you finally land that first client, if you don't mind sharing?
Honestly, what I'm recommending people as well that are looking for jobs is like Facebook. I know it always sounds weird, and I know a lot of people don't,
Totally, totally. I
right?
totally agree with that. Yes.
So the two jobs I have now, I found on Facebook.
Yeah,
And
same.
people, especially people that don't travel, are like, Facebook, that's still a thing. I know that people use it for Instagram. Like some people use Instagram for finding people as well. I think especially if you're a social media manager, that's probably a good place to go. But Facebook, yeah. I so the podcast management client that I found now, I posted in a digital did I? No, I think it was, yeah, it was Digital Nomad Girl or something group or something. And I just asked people if they wanted me to help with the podcast for a testimonial.
Mm.
So what I did for this client, I edited one episode for a testimonial and they liked it so much that they're like, oh, we would like to work for you. So that's something to get your foot in the door. Like, let's say you want to be a remote worker or digital nomad. If you have skills like, I don't know, graphic design or social media, just go out there and like ask people if they need your help with something. And in exchange for a testimonial, and then start like that. And then you have something for your portfolio and you have people, you have work to show to someone. And I think that's the best way. And networking. Like there's so many networking events, especially for female entrepreneurs that I wasn't even aware of. And there's like, they have these big networking events and it's incredible. Like last weekend, this is also something like I've only started doing, but last week I went to a networking event, an online networking event, and I met incredible people. And I met this brand designer, and she gave me tips to also for like posting in Facebook groups and finding work. She's like, "Oh, do this, for
Yes.
free." We just chatted for 15 minutes, and she's like, "You can do this, this, this. Maybe you can find clients like this." And it's incredible. People have so much knowledge that they
Yeah,
want to
we
share.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, sometimes all we have to do is ask and ask the right question. I think that is very important.
exactly.
Ask the right question because a lot of friends has asked me, uh, you know, like, oh, what do you do? And then I am always very open to even point people towards where to find it. Or even if they don't have the skill, I would, be happy to help, finding like helping them dig uh deeper of what they're interested in and where to find even free courses. So literally like every information is available. We are living
Yes.
in 2023 where technology is advanced. All you have to do is
Yes.
ask the right people, ask the right question. I think it's
Oh
very
my God, that is
important.
so true.
Yes, because like maybe for people who are not familiar with remote working and see that you are always posting something online and say, oh, you must have a sugar daddy. So that is not the right question. That doesn't take you very far. So, if you want to ask how people do what they're doing, ask them how they do it. So they might tell you, they might be happy to tell you. So I guess that is also important. I really
Oh,
wanted to get that out.
that is so true.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm glad you mentioned Facebook. I feel like it's just somehow there's more trust in there in terms of community, if you are in the right community. And it's more reliable when it comes to looking for job, I feel. And even when I posted about looking for people to interview, right? I wasn't actually expecting many people to be interested, but there were 22 people who actually messaged me and was
Oh, wow, yeah.
interested. That's very supportive, and I love that. So
It's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's so cool. And knowing what you know now after doing it for a while, what would your advice be for people who want to start from, let's say, no skill that they can bring online, but they can speak English?
I think that everyone has a skill they can bring online. I think a lot of
That's a
people are
good
not
point.
aware. Yeah, I think a lot of people are not aware or think it's not possible. But I've seen so many posts in Facebook groups where people are like, "How did you get started? What did you do?" And I think that's a good way to start asking others or like learning something online where you're like that you're interested in. And I think if you want this bad enough, you're just gonna do it. And
I love that.
however, yeah, and
I love
however way
that.
you want.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes. Someone has to say that more. Yeah, if you want it bad
it,
enough, that is the thing.
you want it.
You want
Exactly. And whether that's starting off in your home country where you have an apartment and you have the financial stability, start building something on the side and then go from there. And I think, yeah, if you want it, you can do it. And there's so much there's so many people that will pay you for what you can do. You just have to sell it confidently. And I'm only just like learning that,
yes.
this is I'm a work in progress as well. Like I'm
Mm,
just, there's so much to offer.
so just do
Yeah.
it and don't be afraid to put yourself out there because
Yes,
someone somewhere might need your help.
exactly.
Amazing. So, this is one last question that I ask everyone. What is the definition of home to you?
For me, it's a place that I feel comfortable in and I'm surrounded by good people. It can be anywhere. I don't, I always still call Germany my home because that's where I'm from and that's where my family is. But honestly, especially having done this for a while now, home can be anywhere. I can feel absolutely at home anywhere when I have the right people around me. And I think that's, yeah.
That's
I
lovely.
mean,
Yes.
right?
Doesn't
Like,
always have to stick to a place, particular
no,
place. Yeah.
I very much am the person that attaches it to people
Mm.
because I don't want to go back to living in Germany. Um, so is it home? Yes and no. Um, but home can be any place with the right people, I think. Yeah.
Couldn't say it any better. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing, Nadine.